it's one of the best golf courses in the UK, without a doubt.
I was shocked it didn't make the GB&I.
Our rankings are trying to be a reflection of good architectural design, but then also proper agronomy, tree management, good management of heather where it exists, and presenting a course, bringing all three of those cogs together. This is really, really good golf, but you can't really take it seriously because there's a few animals roaming around.
I think you're wrong about one thing on what you just said. Hotels under management of a group that don't care about the golf. As soon as you make a course green for photos and pictures and for people arriving at wanting to see lush green things, you take away a shot option, which takes away strategic shot options. Yep. Those are the kind of things that we can judge, because it's the way you've set up your course that has negated strategic golf. It's not whether your green's running at 6 or 10, whatever. We don't care about those things.
You can preserve things without spending a lot of money. You just have to understand what to preserve and how. Courses on this list are there because they have preserved what they have.
Don't hire a hack. Hire someone who cares enough to understand why the golf course is as good as it is. You get a lot of architects that will go in and they'll make changes, and they propose changes without actually knowing what they're actually changing. History won't smile well on these guys. They've got a lot to answer for.
Hello and welcome to another episode of your Top 100 Clubhouse podcast. I'm your host, James Henderson. As always, we have our regular guest in Jasper, Miners and editor of the website. And then one that people are slowly getting used to with a second visit on the Top 100 Clubhouse podcast. And we're sure to have more and more, is our GB&I head of panel, Simon Barrington. How are you doing, Simon?
Very well, James. Thank you very much. And glad to be back so quickly after the England preview pod, which we did. And thanks to everybody for the positive feedback that we got for that. That was great.
Well, calling you the GB&I panel lead has probably teased what we're here to talk about. And I'm quite excited about this one because there's been a bit of movement. You boys have been quite busy, haven't you?
Yeah. It's the GB&I list is an interesting one because it's really encapsulates what we're about, which is you have the global panel feeding from the top down, and then you have the country panels feeding from the bottom up. And this is an amalgamation of those lists put into a logical order in order to get some measure of hierarchy. It's much, to a certain extent, there's more science than art because the inputs are really prescribed by those panels. And I think that's fairly unique in the ranking universe to be able to do that. We're blessed to have a very experienced global panel, and that really dominates the top 30 or so in the list. And then, we have our country panels below that. It's been a joy for Jasper and I to work through it because we keep getting reminded as to what a great place this is to play golf.
I've seen the list as the GB&I panel have worked through it. And one thing I have noticed is how good the courses that have missed out are.
This is always the tough one because once you have your panel set for your countries, and we took the approach a little bit differently this time. Historically, the way it's always been done was the world would go first, and then GB&I would go second, and then the countries would go third, and then counties. So when we reset Scotland, Ireland, and England over the last 2 years, we tried to make it from the bottom up in the sense that we wanted to really see what the panelists were saying on the ground in the trenches. Because in the past, everything was from the top down. Virtually all the big decisions were already made by people that maybe had come and had a few plays over an extended period of time, rather than guys that are seeing a lot of courses on repeat play. So on this one occasion, we thought that we would do it slightly differently, and that resulted in a lot more work. But I think the end result was that we got a true reflection of where things were at county level, sub-region, country level, region, which we're talking about now, GB&I, and then obviously the world is still to come this autumn. So when you bring the four nations plus the islands together, so you've got Ireland, Scotland, England, Wales, and then you've got Channel Islands and Isle of Man to kind of all bring in, which makes up GB&I. And it's really difficult. Like, where do you cut off Ireland? Where do you cut off Scotland? Where do you cut off England? And do any of the islands make it in? So this is always the toughest part. Like, when does that course in Ireland become better than that course in Wales? Or when does that course in Wales is not quite as good as the one in Scotland? And that's that's why we're really glad we have someone like Simon.
Yeah, so I'll have broad shoulders and take the blame, but not at all. Yeah, it's very difficult. I mean, there are different ways of looking at it. You can be, I'm big on numbers, and you can be fairly scientific on it and say what proportion of the total golf courses a particular nation has. And, most people aren't aware that, 61% of all the golf courses in GB&I are in England. I mean, it's just a massive number of courses, almost 1,900 courses. Scotland's only got 18%. The island of Ireland, North, and the Republic have 16%. And Wales has a very small 5%. And, we don't curate a list to match that sort of scientifically, because, Scotland's a home of golf. It should over-index. And when you look at the top echelons of this list driven off the global ranking, Scotland clearly over-indexes and should. But then when you get down to those debates towards the bottom end, we've spent a lot of time working out how to get that balance. And when you do have an eye on that balance, it makes those discussions of, is it course A in England versus course B in Ireland, or course C in Scotland, or course D in Wales? It makes that discussion easier, not harder. But at each decision point, we've thought very carefully and rationally about those. And hopefully we've got an output that at least is respected for that. And I think the output is full of 100 great golf courses.
For me, when you look at the regional rankings, I mean, your big ones are, the biggest one obviously is North America. So Canada and the States, and there might be one or two Mexican courses in there as well. Then you've got, I think, Puerto Rico that's included, part of the Caribbean. So fine. So those are there. And I mean, if you could play any one of the region courses, that would be a really good one, because you have some pretty heavy hitters. But when you look at Oceania, like New Zealand and Australia, really, really good, like world class at the very, very top, and then peters out maybe halfway through. And it's dominated by Australia. So the Australia 100, is punctuated by some of the New Zealand courses, but not a lot. So you're basically looking at kind of the top 100 in Australia with the really good ones from New Zealand. But outside of North America, I mean, GB&I is an unbelievable list of great golf. Like if you had the opportunity to play those 100 courses, and that was like, that's the list I want to do before I die, it would probably be more nuanced, have more variety, better value for money, and closer to pure golf than probably any other regional ranking that we have. It's an astonishing list of golf courses.
It's crazy, isn't it? I understand it stems from the fact that you have this massive amount of coastline in the UK that lends itself, coves that lend themselves to collect sand over many, many a moon. But the fact that the number of links golf courses do dominate the GB&I 100 comparatively to any other nation, you don't see it outside of the UK that much at all. Is that just because geography of the island, or why is that?
Yeah, I think that's the case. I mean, yeah, we have, considerable, there are pockets of links courses. Clearly, you look into Holland, has got some very good links terrain. Clearly when you start looking, on the west coast of the States, because the Pacific is such a ocean with such energy, just like the west coast of Ireland has the Atlantic with so much energy. The transitions are very stark, and it almost becomes clifftop or macro dunes. Where I think, GB&I is also blessed with, the island of Ireland, and the mainland of the UK has an east coast with much more benign links land as well. And that sort of middling links land to flat links land is something that lends itself extremely well to golf, because you can go across it as well as just being in the valleys, which which we can discuss in terms of architecture. For example, Birkdale was specifically designed by J.H. Taylor to be a tournament course where they used the valleys so that the dunes could be used for spectators. And in many ways, it's the naturalized example of alpinization that he did at Royal Mid-Surrey. With Peter Lees. So, there's different reasons, there's different types of links. Sam Cooper's traveled the length and breadth and circuity of these islands, playing all the links courses. And, that's a great project that he did. And the variety even within links is so strong. But yes, we are blessed with the geology and the earth movement that provides for great golf.
I think the other thing to talk about too is, if it's not Great Links, then it's also heathland. And I think heathland properly presented can be just as engaging as any amount of as much as links can do. And in some ways, it's got more bells and whistles than Linksland does. Although you do find some heather at some links courses, Royal County Down being one, I guess, that really stands out.
Yeah.
But I think when I look over the list, I see, there is the beginning of, I think in England, as much as we talk about parkland golf versus heathland golf, there's actually quite a lot of parkland that has moved up from the bottom of the English to the top of, or the middle ground. It's made advancement in the ranking because they're managing the courses really, really well. And I think even in Scotland, a lot of the inland courses are starting to make that move as well. Whether that's what was the James Braid up in the north?
Boat of Garten? No.
Boat of Garten. So whether it's Boat of Garten or maybe Lanark, which of course is a moorland, but the inland course is getting a little bit more traction and a little bit more appreciation. So I don't think it's a reflection of the fact that we have a preference over one or the other. It's just that there's the type of golf we like is dominated on those landscapes.
Yeah, very much so. My camera's gone off, so it's overheated in the Scottish sun. On the YouTube, if ever wants to see me in all my glory, it's because it's too hot currently in Scotland, which is pretty damn cool, I have to admit. How often do you get to be able to claim that? So essentially, the really interesting thing that I want to talk about, the one that everyone likes to talk about when it comes to these rankings, is the biggest fallers and the biggest risers. It's, let's be honest, been a big shake-up. There's a lot of change. Why is there been a lot of change?
I actually think there's a fair bit of change in terms of new entrants at the bottom of the list. But we also have new entrants coming in that aren't genuinely new. And that affects the ranking. So, the highest ranked new entrant in this list, and the highest new entrant is Cabot Highlands Old Petty, opened this year, designed by Tom Doak, built by Clyde Johnson, comes in at 51. So that's a notable genuinely new entrant. The second genuine new entrant is Trump International New, and that comes in at 63. And both of those courses have been actively compared and previewed by a number of people, so I won't go back into that. And then there are the other new entrants are almost the contrary of that. So the highest ranked old course that is new to the list is one that really is what we would call a mispricing in the past. So it's one where previous panels have not really understood its charms, and it is increasingly loved. And believe it or not, that's Ely in Fife. And Ely comes in brand new into the GB&I 100 at 54. And I think it's probably about the right position for it. I think it is a wonderful golf course. Many people cite it doesn't have variety because there's so many par fours, but all of those par fours are so different, and you don't feel that there's a lack of variety. Par being a nebulous concept anyway, but we can go into that. But it, clearly is become increasingly loved, increasingly busy. The membership of quite rightly keeping some of it to themselves in the summer, in the peak season, because it's so busy, because it really is one that has really entered into the global attention for very good reason.
I mean, the other one that's kind of like that as well is the new course at St. Andrews. So yeah. I think for a long time, the old, and rightly so, it is probably, from an architectural point of view, the greatest golf course in the world. If that's debatable, probably along with about 5 to 10 other courses, but let's say that it's probably a champion of that. But yeah, the new next door. And it's a real shame that if people travel all the way to St. Andrews, they play one course if they've bought a package. And then they go off to Kingsbarns or Carnoustie. And actually what they could do is just stay right on site, have lunch, and play the second 18 in the afternoon. And for a lot of people, probably enjoy it or maybe understand the experience better than what they even get on the old. It's more of a traditional quote unquote links, if there is such a thing. So it's nice to see some of these, like, as you say, underappreciated, undervalued, underpriced courses, like coming back to where they rightly belong.
Yeah, that's the one I love. On this list, we have the oldest new course in the world, which is the new at St. Andrews, and we have the youngest old course, which is the course at Trump International. So that's an interesting juxtaposition.
Wow, that is very cool, isn't it?
This podcast is brought to you by Echo Shoes, particularly their new Biome C5. David, I know you have a wee bit of a fondness for an Echo.
Yeah, no doubt. I am literally a walking advertisement for Echo. And I can honestly say I played the World Top 100 in my Echoes. I spent years running around, diving around tennis court and stuff like that for a really long time. And that takes a toll because it was hard courts. And so hard courts, there's a lot of, things going on with your feet. And when I started to get a little bit older, not even old, like in my 30s, I had, my feet were bothering me when I had to do long walks and stuff like that. I mean,
4.5 miles is the standard golf round.
So 4.5 miles, right? So 4.5 miles of walking. When your feet hurt, it's the worst thing ever. And like I had so many rounds where I would get done, and when I first started playing golf, and I couldn't take it. Like I had to get the shoes off, and my feet were just throbbing. And, I ran into Echo probably in, 2007, 2008, 2009, whatever the year was. It was before I started my journey really for playing the World Top 100.
Yeah. If you're doing the world's top 100, you need to be able to trust where your clubs are going and never get sore feet.
Exactly.
So, yeah. The rest you can sort out along the way. So just a couple of things about the Echo Biome C5. Every detail is crafted for the perfect feel, and I know David and his many adventures in golf have enjoyed Echoes over the years, but these have been designed to play and built for comfort. So thank you very much, Echo. Appreciate it a lot.
Again, I'm sorry to all. I'm having a nightmare here up in Scotland. Everything's just overheating and causing trouble.
It's melting. It's at 18.
Yeah.
It's definitely taps off weather. Let's just say that. The Prince Street Gardens in Edinburgh has about 40 million topless Scotsmen with drinking swilling cans of beer that they've bought in the local offie. I would not be surprised. It honestly will look like a scene from the south of France right now in one of those nudist beaches. Right. So, I'm sorry I missed a lot of that. I know I lost connection when it came to Ely, and I just trusted the fact that as a Drains Braid fan, and his birthplace, Earlsbury, but it's the same town. You would only say nice things, and that's fine with me because everyone knows.
You are taking a little bit of a liberty because he was born in Liberty, which is next to Earlsbury. But anyway, I'm joking. I'm full of the really bad dad puns today. Braid proposed works at Ely, but it's a moot point as to whether anything was ever put in place. And in fact, the members voted down formally twice his plan, both in, I think, the 30s and the 50s. But yeah, Ely's a wonderful golf course.
The members do claim one green, though. Am I right in saying they claim that Braid's green's would it be 12th, 13th, 12th?
Again, it's something I need to dig deeper into when I return there. The other thing I did discover this last year in my research is that he actually designed the course next door, which is called the Baird course, because it was set on land owned by a Mr. Baird, which was Ely Ladies course, which is now Ely Sports Club, the 9-hole. He designed that.
It's great.
It's very interesting.
And it's virtually as he designed. Another example of Braid designing a ladies' course, which is interesting. Anyway, it's not the James Braid show. We should move on. So the last one of the sort of new entrants of established courses that maybe have changed, and this one's changed in routing for fairly notable reasons, i.e. the Open, in at number 81 is Royal Portrush, the Valley course. Which had lost some holes to the Open Championship course, the Dunluce, and has been moved around a little bit to enable more practice, more tented village, and actually a short course for the children as well, which is a welcome thing. But that comes in at number 81. So, and there are some more entrants at the bottom of the list, but those we can get to later.
It's good to see that representative. I mean, 4 from Scotland, 1 from Ireland, and I think we're at, let's see, 7 from England, which we can get to in a little bit. So there definitely has been some change. I think that's the thing to note too, is that, when you get to the GB&I, everything that you do at county level is amplified every time you go up or down. So although there's not really much in it between Old Petty, Ely, and Trump International New, there is a bit of a spread, about 12 points or 12 ranking places between them once you get to GB&I, just because of the way it works and the competition that they find, the tier they find themselves in. So if it's a particularly strong English tier or the top end of it, you've got quite a lot of like really good Irish courses.
Yeah.
That's where you can get that spread. So although it's 1 or 2 difference in Scotland, by the time you get to GB&I and then even the World, you can be talking 5 to 10 places and then maybe even more when you get to the World. So yeah, very interesting to see how that'll pan out.
In terms of the biggest movers, we'll come to those English new entrants in a wee while. We'll do a little bit of the movers. The notable movers, probably as I said, the top 30 is very much prescribed from the global list, which will be refreshed in autumn. So there may be a slight rejig of this and the other country lists at that time due to being pushed down on that, which is fine. We're pushing up in this process. We're going to push down in the other process. It's a 2-directional thing. But the most notable climber higher in the list is Formby, which comes up 13 places to 39. And we discussed that on the English pod. County Louth has a nice move up about 8 points. By far the largest climber, and again, this is somewhat of a historic mispricing or underestimation of its charms. And this one you will not be surprised of my joy at. But as I say, I'm only one vote in a system, is Brora in Scotland, which climbs an incredible 40 points in this analysis and is by far the biggest mover to 59. I'll let you guys talk about Brora because I don't wish to be seen to be biased.
I absolutely love it. And I think they've recently voted to remove the livestock from the links, haven't they?
It's still in discussion.
Discussion. Okay.
So we can go deep into detail, but we don't have enough time. The Brora stuff, it's an amazing golf course. Yes, it's cool to see a cow, but that's It's not what we rate on. The worst job at Brora is being the intern greenkeeper. Out with a shovel and a bucket, and that's your mornings. Anyway, but it deserves to be up there because it's been recognised repeatedly by all our panelists as somewhere they love to play golf.
Yes, in many ways, I think the livestock actually masks its architectural strength.
Agreed.
I think that's true.
I think it's very good for its marketing. I think it's great, and it's great for turf conditions. And it's actually, certainly the sheep managed rough is as good as I've played all last year when I actually went up for the James Braid Society meeting, and yeah, just a joy to play. In that respect. So there's a very positive aspect of the livestock in terms of how it plays and how firm it is and how playable the rough is. But yeah, I do think sometimes it gets overshadowed as to how good a design it is.
I know we've moved definitely past English counties and English, but I mean, the other course that, like, I just go back to my beloved Minchinhampton. It is such an astonishing golf course. And I think no one takes it seriously because, yeah, there is like about 6 different types of livestock that you'll come across, plus dogs, and birds once you get out there. And it's sort of like, well, this is really, really good golf. But you can't really take it seriously because there's a few like animals roaming around. And I think to your point, that's maybe where we got to in the past where, if it wasn't a polished resort offering, then it didn't do quite as well. But those days seem to be well and truly behind us at Top 100. So yeah, Aurora, well and truly deserves to be where it is.
Jasper, do you know where I think the next golf course that's going to join the Ely, this is me future citing a golf course that's going to join the Ely Brora epsilons of just seriously good golf on great lands. And I was shocked it didn't make the GB&I is Goswick. I don't think people realize how good that golf course is. And there's been work just finished there. And it's just a shame that it's not quite reached this cycle. It's just finished. To take away their worst hole, but the rest of it is so good.
Yeah, I think you're right to highlight it. It very definitely was a candidate for this list. Clubs that near misses in Ireland were Narran Port New was in the last list and comes out this time. Port Salon was pretty close. Ballydiffin Old was pretty close. So there's 3 in Ireland there that were very under serious consideration by the ranking output. In Scotland, the Queen's at Gleneagles, Boat of Garton, which we mentioned already, Lanark, which we've mentioned already, and then you've got Mercer and Panmure. So those courses are banging the door down, trying to get in. In Wales, Conwy was the next one standing for consideration. And then in England, you have, the refreshed Wentworth Club East course, which a Harry Colt gem that Robin Heisman's done some renovation work on recently. Ferndown, New Zealand, which is just charming. Obviously, Samuel Muir Ferguson, followed by the great Tom Simpson. Goswick, as you said, Delamere Forest, which again is, wonderful. And the West Coast at Saunton was very much banging the door down. So there's just great quality not on the list. And I could probably give you another 25 below those that are very similar, such as the strength in GB&I.
Well, with the way that we now format the list and the way that we bring it all together, it kind of works in a way that we know what our next, 10 possibilities are, next 20 possibilities are. It's quite obvious to us. And that makes for sad reading for someone like myself, who's a number of those courses think, I just don't understand why they're not loved more. But it does show that the strength at the bottom 10 is huge. I think that's probably the hardest section of any ranking is the bottom 10.
I think that's true. And, it's the same in all sports, right? If you've got promotion and relegation, it's keenly fought over. So I think I'll move it over to Jasper to start this part of the discussion, and then I'll dive in as he gives me opportunity.
Yeah. So the bottom 10. I mean, it's obviously as you say, once you get promoted or relegated, there's a lot that goes on in that last section or last tier, if you will. So we've got 8 from England, and this is where the depth of England starts to take over. So once you get down to like the last 20 courses in this ranking, the GB&I ranking, the depth that you see in England really comes to the fore. So you've got one from Wales, and that's Aberdyfi. And then you've also got Castletown. So that's was, I think, included in previous rankings on GB&I, and then has more or less retained where it was. So yeah, a really good golf course. Not many people have seen it. A handful get over there. There's quite a lot of golf on the islands, actually, once you get over there, but Castletown is heads and shoulders above the rest. Yep. And it is a pretty striking piece of land. There's a lot of coastline just because of the position of the course. And I think they are keen to do a little bit of work as well moving forward, because I think I've heard that the hotel that used to sit in ruins beside the clubhouse is now being torn down, or has been torn down, and they've got grand plans to put something else up there. And no doubt with the investment that's going in, they want to make it match the course, the stature of whatever they've got planned. So yeah, Castletown is quite exciting to see it there, but also to see what the future holds. And then you get down to, I mean, just some class acts. Aldborough is one to look out for. They've done quite a lot of work. I think there was one hole on the course that Mackenzie and Ebert didn't touch, which was a Colt on the back nine. Now, you've got Simon and Jasper here with you, so we won't go too far into the traditionalist side of how much has been changed and why. But I think any of the reports that we've heard back is that it's anything but homogenous. The bunkers actually look different than a lot of stuff that you see them playing. And I don't think there's a lot of sand scrapes, which they've become known for recently. So Aldborough looks to be very good. I'm getting there sometime next month, I believe. But the panelists that we did have to see it already, obviously felt that it should rise in England, and it's got its way into GB&I. I think some of the other ones as well, Beau Desert just sneaks in at 100. And that's a course that I think we'll continue to see rise. They've done some amazing work with trees, and restoration, if you will. So that's been a steady riser, but I think it's one of those courses that the more people go to see it and the more they play it, we'll start to realize how good it actually is.
It's a great example of what is actually handful of courses by the great Herbert Fowler. And for that, we're truly blessed that it's there in its own instance, but that it can make the list is there by right. But it's nice to celebrate one of the great architects.
And I think one of the best short fours in golf. I mean, wow. It is like a par 3.5 if you've ever. It's about 240 from the tee, and if you don't try and go for the green, you still have to hit a really good shot as a layup. It's a spectacular hole. That is worth going on its own. And then 18 might be one of the better finishing holes in all of inland golf.
Wow.
Yeah, cracking golf course. And I think Hayling is probably similar. I think Hayling's been an underappreciated links course on the south of England just because there's not a lot there. I mean, after Rye, basically you have to get to Cornwall to find anything of note. So I think Hayling finally cracks in, but that's just after years of effort.
I know one of our panelists organizes the English Golf Amateur events, and they've got an event at Beau Desert this year, and he's really excited to see it against these guys because he's saying it's very short comparatively, but it's going to be complex and it's going to be difficult for these guys to be able to maneuver and understand how to play there, which is exciting.
Yeah, that is exciting. The other ones in the bottom of the list from England that have come in. The wonderful, we spoke about Fowler, Walton Heath new course was originally the relief course, 9 holes designed by Fowler, and another 9 holes by Fowler and Braid. That's in. Another one that tends to be overlooked, not overlooked, that's wrong, maybe not given the sort of headlines that it should, because the England's Gulf Coast is so strong, is Southport and Ainsdale. And the team there are doing an incredible job of improving playing conditions and doing renovation work. Majority of that is being done internally, being done with great care. And the playing surfaces consequently are a joy to play on in terms of what we look for. They're true to the links land and great variety of holes. And, the wonderfully named Gumbleys, which is a par 5 on the back 9 with an enormous sleeper-faced bunker set into a hill for a blind approach that puts the fear of God into many a person. Great that comes into the list at 95 and joins its neighbours there.
Southport and Ainsdale, just quickly.
Yes.
1 to 12? No, sorry, 1 to 10, or no, 11.
Yeah.
Is arguably better stretch of golf than the 2 courses next to it in terms of Hillside and Birkdale. But it's that section that just in the back 9 that lets it down so much, because it's the golf on that the clubhouse side of the property is incredible. The variety is so good.
Yeah, I think is it the 8th, the par 3, which is just phenomenal. It has got great variety. There was a couple of reroutings done. Braid designed it, earlier in the last century. It's held 2 Ryder Cups back when they chose good courses for Ryder Cups, that's unfair. We now choose a tournament course as opposed to a bad course. We choose courses that are set for the event rather than for the golf. It is really a fantastic addition. And then the other 2, Royal Ashdown Forest, bunkerless and charming, and Hindhead, which probably is the most valid heathland course in the area in terms of really being quite constrained in its playing areas, and therefore that claustrophobia gives it a certain quiet charm that is quite unique and quite well regarded for that. I do know that it was one of Peter Alice's favourite courses back when he was with us, and he would wax lyrical about a great deal of things, but certainly about Hindhead.
It's an interesting thing to look at too. When you look at these courses, I mean, inevitably, I get an inbox full of either glowing letters of appreciation for the ranking, and I say, yeah, that's the panel, so, we'll pass it on. And then inevitably, we also get fan mail of a different tone with courses that have fallen out. Now, that could be at any ranking, whether that's county, country, or GB&I, or potentially even the world. And that's just the hazards of the job. What's interesting, though, is that when you look through those, say, last 20 courses that are in GB&I, the vast majority of them have had good management of their golf courses over decades. So they haven't needed to do loads of work because they've had good hygiene programs. But a lot of the courses that have nudged their way in have done a lot of work, good work, and predominantly around things like, restoration, proper restoration. Moortown is one that sticks out. It was in previously, but moves up slightly to 91 on the new ranking. A lot of that is down to the work that's been done to restore what, Alistair Mackenzie had there originally, where it made sense. There have been some structural changes to that golf course. But then in other places too, they've been able to make good changes in line with what's been done. So responsible restoration that is not homogenous, that adds a little bit of character. And then you see courses like Moortown being rewarded for it. It's good to see. But it just shows that our rankings are trying to be a reflection of good architectural design, but then also coupled with proper agronomy, tree management, good management of heather where it exists, and presenting a course, bringing all three of those cogs together to make sure that it's dialed in. And to be on this list, you need to be. And maybe that's something to say. If you're here, it's not an accident. There's a tremendous amount of work that goes into, like, collectively at a golf club getting on this list.
I do want to say that I think you're wrong about one thing on what you just said. And that's, after speaking to you on when the rankings get released and all the things come through and all these messages of love and hate come through. Normally on the phone, you're like, when the love comes through, it's like, oh, it's all me. I did all of that. And then the hate comes through, you instantly say, oh, well, the panel.
Yeah. It's the panel. So that's proper management strategy. That
just like a great golf course, it's proper management.
I'll step in and be protective of my panels. And I know you're protective of yours, James.
Very much so.
It's a function of the group. So we share in the plaudits and the pain if need be, quite happily. The other consistent theme in this that we've spoke about a bit on the English list is the difficulty of inland courses being able to maintain firm and fast conditions and the playing characteristics of their original design. And we've had a few of the sort of more inland courses slip back a bit in the list. Like Wentworth West, for example, comes down a bit. Even a course with unbelievable deep pockets and great things to come, clearly, Adair Manor slips in the list by about 16 points. Again, we've said this before, doesn't mean that they're terrible golf courses, that they've moved down. It's just really hard to keep those conditions and keep the appreciation of those conditions for the panel. When it comes to something like Adair and Wentworth, tournament golf and the history of tournament golf is a very small part of the history of a course, and it's not something that we consider within our rankings. Some other ranking schemes do, and that's fine. But we are very much focused on the architecture, sort of without fear or favour on that. Queenwood slips back a little bit. One which is hard for me to discuss, and I might transfer a little bit of a comment to you, James, because I know it's something that you've noted, is a small fall for James Braid's wonderful King's course at Glen Eagles. And I've got my thoughts as to why that may be, which I'll follow with. But James, as leader of the Scotland panel, I think I would pass this back to you.
Yeah, for me, the King's is arguably one of the most unique golf courses in the whole of the UK. You could take a picture of any hole on the Kings and it looks like a King's golf hole, but every golf hole's different. It's so good. It's amazing. But it's the hotel's under management of a group that don't care about the golf. And it's a shame, but it's what it is. And as soon as you make a course green for photos and pictures and for people arriving at wanting to see lush green things because of the Americanization of golf, thankfully it's changed more recently. There's a new era that the Masters is leading. But as soon as you have that, you take away a shot option, which takes away strategic options. And as soon as you do that, it's a minus point on our schedule. It's a minus point on our, if we're marking as strategic golf, as our main goal, you lose a point. Like it's just simple. And there's no points, but that's so important to the game of golf. And I think it's just been over watering. It's just because it's not run by golf nerds. like us. It's run by a hotel chain that wants it green and pretty.
Yes, and I think the other thing is that considering there is a membership there which is very active, but a considerable amount of the play is coming in, going out. It's not massive amount of repeat play. They may play it 2 or 3 times in their short stay at the resort, or they may be, going off to other Scottish golf courses and using Gleneagles as a base. And so consequently, that doesn't get reflected or fed back to the hotel and the management enough, in my view. Without doubt, and it's a gem. I've got a map of the courses to the right of me, and the book of the Golf at Gleneagles from back in the 20s. It's a great love of mine. So I'm saddened to see that, and hopefully they can impress the Scottish panel to get back up. But that's a personal view there. But I thought it was worth noting, because although we don't include agronomy and course conditioning specifically within our guidance, which is on our website, which Jasper very sensibly, when he came in, decided to open to the public, because I think that's really important that we're open and transparent. We don't include that specifically, so we don't rate, your green speed and all those types of things. But we do judge playing characteristics and how consistent they are to the design, exactly as you said, James. I think that's really important. The other thing is that, we've had some comment on some of the socials about the England list, about a particular course that was struggling with its greens last year, and speculating that was the reason that it fell. That's not the case. So, if one of our panelists goes to see a course and they have an outbreak of fusarium, it's extremely bad for us to penalize them on the basis of something that is clearly temporary. But if you have a significant change in permanent conditions, that does become an issue. And that can be positive or negative. So, for example, Wallasey has done really well in a number of lists, including our own, over recent years, because of unbelievable work that team are doing. And it's one of the best golf courses in the UK. Without a doubt. The benefit of that for our list is the playing conditions, not that agronomy. That agronomy is the cherry on the cake. It's the icing on the bun, whatever you want to call it. And it's wonderful, and we should celebrate that. But within our rankings, what drives it is how that affects how the course plays, rather than those playing conditions on a short-term basis.
It's simple things. There's simple things like having tight, firm turf deep away from the green, so all the way around the green, so you can have shot options. Every single top golf course in the UK does that, but then there's a load of golf courses that are brilliant that just don't, and they just have rough almost coming or a semi that plays all the way around a green. Those are the kind of things that we can judge, because it's the way you've set up your course that has negated strategic golf. It's not whether your green's running at 6 or 10. We don't care about those things. It might be a wee bit lumpy. Yeah, you can't get an iron on it this week because it's been wet. Whatever. We don't care about those things.
I would just have to say, to echo that, it's an interesting one. I mean, and it's not just here. The Fairmont chain of hotels owns 2 gems in Canada which are particularly dear to my heart, because I grew up playing them, Banff Springs and Jasper Park Lodge. But similarly, when we spoke to them last year or the year before even, when you say, like, do you really realize like how great your golf courses are? And the individual that they might have at the helm who's responsible for like golf operations of the portfolio is like, oh, do you mean they're okay? Like they're good golf courses or what? And it's almost like just another line on a massive portfolio's, register at the end of the year. And as long as that line remains black and it doesn't turn red, then it's like, well, it doesn't need to be on a risk register. So the happy days, it's making money. Let's just continue on. And I think when they get approached and they say, hey, like, this would be amazing if you pumped in a few million pounds into it, or dollars. It's kind of like, well, why would we do that from an asset point of view? Like we're making money on it. Do we really need to do it? And I guess that's just the difference between us as, purists, fans, you want to see these gems, which Glen Eagles and the other courses I mentioned are. Your heart just kind of aches to see them at their prime again.
I've been doing something really entertaining to me, and no one else gets it, but I've really enjoyed it recently. I've been telling people that, like, if I meet a Canadian, and I work with a Canadian, Jasper, and they'd be like, oh yeah, blah, blah, whatever. And I'm like, do you know Jasper's not actually his real name? His name's Garrett, and it's not actually, like, he just uses that because he loves Jasper Park Lodge so much that he changed his name to it.
Yeah, I missed out the second and third barrel there, but that might be coming eventually. Yeah, there's a bit more of a story to that. It's not quite that, but yeah, we can go with that. It's fine. I think, James, you might have a similar story though, don't you?
It's sad that I don't have a golf course that can claim that I'm named after them.
From my perspective, these things are never set in stone. As we said, in autumn, we will have the global re-ranking that will influence this list because we like to live update those. It will also influence, below the list and in the country lists as well, because we are pleased to have that global perspective. And so some of that feedback can be integrated more on a more live basis going forward, rather than just doing every 2 years a solid, re-rank stop and start process. And I think that's what Jasper's really detailed here, which is, this is about curating a list that moves over time and rewards people for doing the right things over time. And that compound move obviously helps them. And also it's competitive. To stay on the list, you've got to stay doing those good things, and be very careful. And, I'm obviously quite historical in my outlook. And I think restoration globally as a movement is much more advanced than it is over here. It is better within this top echelon than maybe the proliferation of clubs across the UK and GB&I. But it's really incumbent on courses to understand what's unique and have a high burden of proof if there's something architecturally of merit. Whether it's got someone's name on it, it doesn't matter. If there's a piece of terrain that has uniqueness and quirk and affects the playing experience in a positive way, and that can be a brutal hazard, or it can be something really quite subtle like a small bump in front of a green, protect it, curate it, look after it, and people will reward you with rankings in terms of our respect, but your members will be happier, your visitors will be happier. You're going to have a much more sustainable business model over the long term by looking after the golf architecture and playing conditions of your course. And it's competitive. Get on the list, as you said, James. The next level candidates are clear from the country lists, and people can look at that, and people can see where they should be and where they are, and maybe see where the opportunities are to, improve and take some inspiration from your neighbours. I think the biggest inspiration on this list, certainly in regard to inland golf, both heathland and parkland, is the Addington. In terms of what Ryan's been doing there and his team and CDP, it's a poster child for what can happen to a sleeping giant of a course that has exposed its architecture, literally exposed its architecture by taking trees away and doing very careful work. And there are other Abercrombie courses, there are other Colt courses. It doesn't matter which designer or architect is on them that can take inspiration from that and see that they're doing the right thing for the future by looking back at the past.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing that you do is obvious. In America, there's a lot more money in golf. Obviously, everyone knows that. But and a lot of these small town clubs that do have very, very good golf course architecture that you wouldn't see on a top 100 list. And you can pay very little to play them. don't have the money for Gil Hant's renovation job, don't have the money for the big guys who, there's not that many doing it brilliantly,
Yeah, I was reading Golf Club Atlas earlier today, and Tom Doak was writing about the absence of preservation. And I think that's really important. I think he's spot on, which is you can preserve things without spending a lot of money. You just have to understand what to preserve and how. And a number of the courses on this list are there because they have preserved what they have. Not that they've gone in and done some big project. They've incrementally improved things and been preservationist in their approach. That's a mouthful. I think, it's very definitely clear how you get to be on the list, how you get to stay on the list, how you get to move up the list.
And maybe that is something just to call out as well. There are some that drop and that have dropped in England and in GB&I particularly. And, the commonality, we spoke about it before we got on here, was that doing work on your golf course is brilliant. Like, golf courses are constantly evolving. And if your course is 120, 130 years old, there's a lot that's changed in 130 years. Whether that's environmentally, weather patterns, on and on and on. However, if you're the custodian of a golden age masterpiece that has even a sniff of this list, don't hire a hack. And what I mean by that is...
Hire me.
James has openings. What I mean by that is hire someone who cares enough to understand why the golf course is as good as it is, not just the guy who's, he's down the road or he's the cheapest, or find someone who's willing to become an expert at your golf course, that's willing to tear it apart, look everywhere possible to learn about it, and is willing to put in that time to become an expert on your golf course. Because you get a lot of architects that will go in and they'll make changes and they want to do work and they want to put in rubber compass and course furniture and all the things that don't matter. And they propose changes without actually knowing what they're actually changing. And if you have an original green site that's been built by a master and you can't be bothered to go and figure out what you're actually consulting on, and you go and change it, you will never get it back. And unfortunately, that happens, and happens a lot. It's a scourge, especially with a lot of the work that's being done now. And it's a shame, because I think the real cost that a lot of these clubs are going to have to pay is that they've got a poor replacement for a stunning original.
A misunderstood original. It's like you hear of these stories of people taking art down from their walls and selling it out of their garage, selling it in a flea market, and then someone picks it up and sells it on an auction site for God knows. And a lot of golf courses, it feels like that's happening right now.
And I think that's the point. Sometimes, we always say this: value is what you get and price is what you pay. And sometimes it can be inverse as well. You hire these architects to do work, and you pay a price, but actually the damage that they've done to the golf course, in the name of quote unquote progress, history won't smile well on these guys. And hopefully they're ignorant of that fact, because if they're not, then they've got a lot to answer for. And I know that's like a harsh thing to say, but at the same time, it's good to have someone who's willing to call them out. And I think they know who they are, which is why I won't go into it at the minute.
You just need to look at the work that Donald Steele did on the Eden, or the work Royal Aberdeen did. It's just an instant, for me, you instantly know which parts he's done. It's very evident. And you guys don't have to comment on that. Don't worry.
No. I'm in print as saying that the Eden is the best 14-hole golf course in Scotland.
Well, it's so good. It's so good.
It's wonderful, and I think there are moves behind the scenes to possibly even remodel some of the Strathyram holes and bring them into the loop and just change a couple of routings. I actually think that they could even play it as 14. There aren't many 14 courses around, and you've got Balgo's 9, Strathyram. They just keep growing through the golfing experience. But to keep it pure, it's a wonderful golf course.
It would be shorter in terms of the amount of time it takes, so you can get 2 rounds in.
That's what I mean.
It'd be perfect.
Different formats. There's no reason to have 18. The other thing, just following on what Jasper said, it's not just about the architects, it's also about the clubs. And the clubs need to understand that the burden of proof of making change, if they've got something special, should be much, much higher than they currently do. The good courses get that. The good courses understand inertia and understand that change only needs to be made when there is some significant threat, whether it be safety, whether it be other things. A lot of affectation and personal preference is being dressed up as a reason for change, and inertia is more valuable. As I say, preservation is an underused word in our industry. But there we go. Great. Well, just to summarize, look, again, proud to be involved, and we know we're going to get comments. We're happy to get comments. I'm happy to not debate, politely debate things. It's our role is to highlight what we think is of quality, and I think this list does that pretty well.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks very much for all your time, gentlemen. Simon, I know both of you are busy men. You got to go.
Thank you.
I'm actually going to play with Andy Cocker, who's one of the panelists from Yorkshire this evening. Super. So that'll be fun. Just want to say, if anyone, the GB&I will be out by the time this is released, so please go online to the website, check it out. If you want to argue with us about why something's not in it or something is in it, and you want to congratulate us, which normally is the one we prefer, the best way to do it is through Instagram or on Twitter or all the social media platforms. And we are very vocal. I know Jasper loves to have gin and tonic or just a straight gin on ice and get into the weeds of the comment section. And I have to admit, Jasper, you're very good at it. It's very entertaining to read. So,
we try to provide a little bit of a nudge and a wink in places.
Well, it's just everything we were saying here, right? You just back up. So thanks very much to both of you, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much to everyone who's listening. And I just remember, play fast, lunch slow.
This episode is brought to you by the Lockhart Travel Club. We believe golf is more than a game. It's a journey. A journey we've made across 34 of the world's top 100 courses last year, and now is your turn. We curate bespoke travel experiences for passionate golfers who expect nothing but the best. Membership is limited, so join us at lockharttravelclub.com. Top100golfcourses.com has set the standard for golfers worldwide, and now you can wear that standard proudly. Premium apparel and exclusive gear for those who truly know the game. Shop now at top100golfcourses.com.